So for some reason it didn't mute your mic, Scott.
Oh, did you hear me say, let's do this?
No, it was echoing. So something was echoing like crazy. I'm not sure what it was.
Oh, that's why I was echoing.
Yeah, and I muted your mic and it went away, so I don't know. So
Scott, you're demoted.
Yeah, you're demoted. So tonight we're going to have some real answers in atheism. So, right? We're going to do it.
Real.
So
I thought atheism didn't answer a damn thing.
Well,
I thought so too, but apparently I got busted last night.
Oh, you did? Was that last night or the night before?
Sorry, the night before. I sank it.
Why do you keep doing that?
Today's Tuesday, Andrew.
Yeah, try to keep up. You youngins just can't keep up anymore.
Do y'all have like a calendar that hangs on the wall somewhere in the house?
I actually do. We have multiple ones, but
yeah, go get one.
To look at for some reason.
Go get one with your finger on Tuesday.
I had a conversation set up at Ian for 7 p.m. today, and when I made it, I thought it was Monday myself, so I'm not much better. I have no idea what day it is half the time. So I just stood Ian up. Damn it. Sorry, Ian. Yeah, I spent 30 minutes putting his kid to sleep, and they spent 10 minutes waiting for me to get online. Damn. Horrible. Anyway, so here we have you coming into John's room. I can't remember where it was exactly. But then, let's see, Moina, Andrew, enter Naturalism of the Gaps. So that would be at 5831. So actually what we're going to cover tonight is Naturalism of the Gaps. And if we have time, we might get to that Darth Dawkins guy, or whatever the hell he calls himself. What did he call himself before Darth Dawkins?
Evolution something.
Maybe dunking atheism, because that's the icon he had.
Yeah, dunking
atheism. Might have been, yeah. Yeah, well, something else.
Evolution something. I can't remember the.
Yeah. And I think I saw him once on camera, but I can't remember where that was. But
yeah, it's funny actually. I was watching Leo's stream about his confrontation with Darth Dawkins, and surprise, surprise, that very same night I met the man himself.
Met the man himself, yeah. Yeah, and what he did was, what he does, you have to print out a transcript and go through it. And I did, and we have a transcript. And I think it's really interesting what he does, because he does this like round robin where he keeps changing the wording just a little bit. And sometimes he asks you a question and they'll say, you didn't answer my question, let me ask again. And then he asks a different question, but only very slightly, so you don't even know what's happening. And it's really, and the whole, so we've been looking into this precept thing a little bit, and the whole rule book for precept is to be on the offense, you know, and to not let, and to show the atheist that his views are inconsistent. And they will do that through this word salad philosobabble, which is what he was giving you. That's why you didn't understand what the hell he was talking about. And it's nuanced. So it's very clever the way they do it.
Right. Well, I actually told, because Emery was in the room, or actually he was in, he was in the room. And I was telling him in chat, and I think we both agreed. I don't want to put Emery on the spot here, so if I do, I apologize, Emery. But I think we both agreed that the way Darth Dawkins put himself out there, like to me at least, was kind of unfair or rude.
Yeah, those guys weren't even backing him up.
Yeah.
Godzilla Freak came out against them, and
yeah, I was telling him in the private chat, dang it, I'm something along the lines of, dang it, I'm a rational empiricist. I'm a sciencer, not a philosopher.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway, we might get into a little bit of that.
Yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to change the topic.
Yeah. Well, you're still underage, so technically that was child abuse. Until July, right? July. Then anybody can abuse you. We don't care after that.
So what are you going to do for your 18th birthday celebration?
Run away from home.
Well, I guess I said I would knit a costume for Standing in Truth, so maybe we can have an official duel, and we can battle atop the streets of Metropolis City.
Cool. I didn't realize my camera was on. Who's that guy? Okay, so I was going to play the beginning of the naturalism thing, and we can dive into it a little bit here. And okay. Dr. Dan, if you're out there, check your email, because we thought you might have something. Grampy? What's that?
Are you Uncle Grampy?
I guess so.
Oh, who is that? Well, I know a Nick, but if he calls me Grampy, I'm going to kick his fucking ass the next time I see him. Anyway, I don't think so. I have no idea who the fuck that is. Okay, so I'm going to roll the video here a little bit. You want to?
Roll that beautiful bean footage.
Roll beautiful footage.
Oh boy, my awful voice.
So John Maddox predicted that we were going to do a weather report about this video. And so here we are. He failed. It's not a weather report. It's a special. So we're doing a special. Let me know if it sounds okay.
To support my position on the naturalism of the gaps idea, I believe, is I also had some other questions, but I believe is that what you guys want to talk about first? Or?
Well, I mean, you were the one that was claiming there is no such thing as naturalism of the gap, so I guess you need to either ask a question or defend your position. One of the two.
Okay.
So do you see where he kind of started being a douche right there, John?
Well, I didn't notice the difference.
Oh yeah, well I guess it's hard because he only has one mode, and that's dickbag. Jesus Christ. I mean, you were the one that was claiming, it's like, I don't know, maybe I'm being too sensitive. I don't think so. I think I read that right.
Well, we can all be too sensitive with NEF and LPD and etc.
Yep. Okay.
So the reason I don't think naturalism of the gaps is a real concept is because first we need to define what supernatural means. So supernatural in the language that I'm using refers to something or a concept, an object, an entity, whatnot, that is beyond the natural world, that is beyond the physical universe. And that means that sorry.
Go ahead. What does that have to do with naturalism? I mean, that's not even in the equation.
Well, that's why in order to reach a supernatural explanation.
Okay, don't you think that was kind of a weird thing to say? Because if it is a naturalism, then it's some other thing.
Right.
And I define the supernatural to be something that does not appear to have a physical causation. There's no physical chain of causation. So something happens out of the blue. And usually what they're talking about with supernatural is they mean that a mind caused it, that a mind or a ritual caused it, right? So that's supernatural.
Right. The general idea is that's beyond what we conceive as natural, basically.
Right. If you did the same thing twice, then it wouldn't happen because somebody didn't will it to happen. That somebody has to will the magic to happen with a mind, so there has to be this intentional element to it. Right. That I make a bundle of flowers appear and I'm not a magician. I actually made them appear and there's no causal relation. But then the other kind is like where you get together and you dance around the fire and you throw herbs on the fire and you say a magic incantation. So that is a repeatable experiment, right?
Right.
And, the old magic idea. So those are the kinds of supernatural that people are usually talking about. The kind that I like to add to that is the possibility that there's some little chunk of the universe, like a room that you walk into and all of a sudden space-time is all out of whack. Or maybe there's, like more dimensions present than you can handle. And you keep disappearing in and out of the frame and, shit like that. That would be another kind of supernatural. That one may be possible if physical laws broke down around the edges of the universe. But anyway, so it's really important to understand what the hell you're talking about. And it certainly is in the equation, so Jungle Jargon's remark there was just bullshit,
Well, even if it is in the equation, just to say something real quick, even if it is in the equation, it's so very difficult to delineate. I mean, what was supernatural before can become natural, and this is kind of one reason why methodological naturalism is not a naturalism of the gaps, basically. But anyways,
okay, you mean what we considered supernatural? We can figure out how it works,
right?
Yeah, we could discover something about the universe that we didn't know before, that sort of thing.
Right, exactly.
But they kind of do something unfair here, I think, as we move ahead. Let's see.
You have to exhaust the natural explanations first because that's all we have access to via science and scientific processes. And in order to reach a supernatural explanation, you have to exhaust the natural explanations, which is kind of impossible because there could always be a natural explanation that you haven't thought of.
Yeah. Lightning.
So that's one reason why I think naturalism of the gaps isn't a real concept, is because, for one, the natural world is all we have access to, and it's our starting point.
Okay. So you do.
Oh, wait. How did I start that? Oh, okay. I did start it. Okay.
That the position you're outlining means that there is literally nothing that can ever be falsified.
Okay, so that's bullshit. Because, so jockey back 1,000 years, and they didn't know what the hell caused lightning, right?
Right.
And so we discovered, we actually discovered new laws of the universe in that case. But there's, that can be falsified. I mean, that was testable, repeatable. It was a regularity in the universe that something we didn't understand that we understood. But I mean, now in modern times, we pretty much know what we're doing, and we run into something like a particle interaction or something. We don't think, oh God, that was supernatural. We go out and look for laws that will support that. So I don't know.
Right.
But he says it can never be falsified. And what I think he's referring to is abiogenesis, maybe?
Right. Oh, well, I think he's referring to naturalism as a whole.
Yeah, but we falsify things all the time, right?
Right. Yeah. But that's kind of what I think this is what I'm going to try and say in a moment. But like, you can falsify individual experiments. Individual explanation, but
right. Yeah,
naturalism as a whole is a bit more difficult to falsify.
Yeah,
right.
You'd have to do every experiment possible in order to falsify the whole thing, right?
Right.
Or eliminate everything.
I think we should also delineate again between methodological and philosophical naturalism, which are two different concepts. And I don't know, Speed, do you want to define that for the audience?
Well, methodological naturalism is we've got something that we have to explain, and we are going to endeavor to explain it with physical laws that we know of.
Right.
And if that fails, then we will look to physical laws that we don't know of. At no point will we stop and say, well, magic must have happened, problem solved. Somebody must have intervened with their mind and changed the experiment, or God must have willed it to happen, so we don't have to look any further. So methodological naturalism carries with it this really important element, and that is that we're going to keep looking. We're not going to stop looking until we completely understand the causality of it. And if we never understand the causality of it, we're going to keep looking anyway, because that's our method, right?
Right, and the other aspect of that would be, it's about looking for things that we understand, but it's also about now I remember, it's about not going beyond the observations themselves. So like in this case, for instance, if you do an experiment, the experiment can suggest something. Now, the experiment, of course, doesn't say stuff for itself, because, well, observations don't directly tell you anything. That's why you need to test your explanations against the observations. But the observations still ultimately guide your explanations along the right path, I guess, if you want to call it that. And the fact is, with methodological naturalism, in experiments, even when it might seem like it's supernatural or undiscovered, or unexplained, it still means that you can't go beyond the guidance of the experiment, for instance. So if something doesn't make sense, that doesn't mean it's supernatural. That just means that you can't go beyond the assumptions of what the experiment is telling you thus far. So like if a good example would be some and I really like this example of someone healing an amputee, and you do a bunch of different experiments, and you find that the pattern is the same, that there's a specific process that you need to do in order to heal the amputee. Does that suggest that God exists, for instance? No, of course not, because the experiment isn't guiding you along that direction. The evidence doesn't support that. Right. What it suggests is that this specific process we need to keep looking into, because it seems that this is the only way it can happen, but we just don't know why that's the case. And so my point is that we can't go beyond. We can't assume anything beyond the results of the experiment is another part of methodological naturalism.
Yeah. So Dessel Drace brings up an important point here, that if, suddenly the stars move around and rearrange in front of our eyes, and it spells out Jesus is the Lord, and it stays up there and we see it, I, for one, am going to start reading the Bible. Okay? Because that would be sufficiently weird that I would say, okay, you guys are right. You guys are right. and if this following thing happened, if a man survived 3 days in a fish, well, I would check on that one. I keep trying to find, reasons for a while. But if he rises from the grave and floats up into the sky, I'm going to say, okay, you got me. You got me. And if a donkey holds a conversation with me, and it's real and you're not crazy, I think I'm going to concede on that one too. So, I mean, but we're talking about abiogenesis. We're talking about life is here today. It is complicated as hell. It's very intricate. And I'm not going to just say, oh, God did it because it's so complicated. That is a very different thing from seeing a language written in the stars, don't you think? But I mean, wouldn't any of those things get you guys? Wouldn't you really start to...
It would make me think. I just think the only thing to keep in mind was that you cannot deny the possibility that you may be seeing a pattern that isn't really there for instance. Like
yeah, but I mean, if
stars just so happened to arrange themselves in that pattern of trillions of stars, which if you have trillions of stars in the universe, that's going to be a certainty at that point.
yeah,
Well,
but we've
I
never
understand
seen
statistics correctly.
we've never seen stars rearrange themselves. And the other thing is, if it was in English, I would think, oh my, English speaking people are the chosen one.
Unless everybody saw it written in their own language.
Now that would be pretty fucking weird if everybody saw it written in their own language. That would just break down all causality and all naturalism. But yeah. If we saw miracles like that, I think most of us would start coming on over to the supernatural side. I don't know, in droves, with good reason. I think that would be good reason. But the fact that we've never seen that shit happen,
right.
What does that say? I don't know.
So would you like to go to church?
Well, the Jesus is Lord stuff would kind of indicate that maybe I should go to church. I think I'd be a Catholic if I had my choice.
Yeah, I would just sum up as that would be a good indication that there's something there that we don't understand
at all.
At all. But I think like you said, the fact that hasn't happened yet is it makes it kind of difficult to think, oh, I would do this, I would do that. Well, it hasn't happened yet, so we don't have any precedent for this.
Yeah. So if all those Christians out there are so worried about saving our asses from the hellfire, what they should all be praying for is that Jesus writes his name in the stars like that, because we've admitted here that that's probably going to get us at least reading the Bible, if nothing else,
Right.
So would you be willing to worship an alien species who had the technology to make things appear like their stars are rearranged in the sky?
See, that's a good point, Scott.
Somebody from the dead, make a donkey talk. So,
right.
You have to answer.
Like I said, it can always be something you haven't thought of.
Yeah. Is this a god, or is this an alien who's 800 years more advanced technologically, who's figured out how to do all that and figured that'd be a good way to dominate another species?
Yeah.
Ooh, so that should be the next sci-fi flick or something.
I know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
well,
because
that was an episode of Star Trek Next Generation.
Well, there would be some conspiracy site on the internet that would say, no, that's not God, that's aliens. So they're, and then they'd be called a conspiracy, but they would, in this case, they would happen to be right. But I don't know. I probably still wouldn't go to church.
Yeah. I
don't like it.
I think the problem with it is that, okay, you're going to say, okay, look up there. There's this pattern, Jesus is Lord in the stars. What can you conclude from that? You might conclude that Jesus is God, for instance, or whatnot, but there's no other independent lines of evidence beyond that suggests that. So by itself, that result is just, here's something we don't know. You can't go beyond the we don't know without further evidence.
Yeah. So if we had if the man rose from the dead and rose up into the sky, the donkey talked, and the man survived in the fish, and they wrote it in the stars, then I think I'm sliding toward Christianity. I don't know about you guys, but
right.
I think
it has to be a bit more than just a random coincidence in the sky.
Yeah, because the alien thing kind of bothers me, but boy, I would worship somebody that had that kind of technology that could drive stars around. And not only drive stars around, but figure out exactly where to drive them so that it looked like Jesus is Lord appears to the earth. But then if they made it appear in multiple languages, then they would have to manipulate our minds at the same time. And I don't think that's even technically possible, no matter how advanced you are. So I don't know. But anyway, Dessel Dre says the difference between abiogenesis in these examples that it's a question of what natural world is capable of doing. Right. So for abiogenesis, there's absolutely nothing like what Maddox says here. what does he say here? He
Yeah,
says, yeah, we can let it play for a while because he kind of gets into this.
And don't you?
I don't think that follows.
Okay, you just said that it's impossible to exhaust all natural possibilities. Correct?
Right, but that doesn't apply to a specific explanation.
Okay, so here's where John Maddox is wrong. If he's talking about abiogenesis, there are no natural possibilities. There are no new laws or regularities that we need to believe in abiogenesis, because it was all chemistry and physics, and nobody is postulating that there's some new law of the universe that's going to be discovered that's going to go into abiogenesis. You know, we're working with existing science here, and that's what they don't get about abiogenesis.
Right.
But they think somehow that probability, like something that is extremely improbable, is somehow magic. Like they would believe in magic if something improbable happened. We'd believe in magic if something so ridiculously, obviously done by an intelligence. Like if I found a watch on the beach, I would say it was done by an intelligence, right? I would not believe that it was created by the ocean, kicking molecules around, right? So I mean, and I guess that goes to what we know about what can be made and what can't, that sort of thing. You know, we know a little bit about that. So even though there is some weird scenario where a watch could suddenly be made, right, by the proper collision of events, I don't know. It would be pretty weird. So anyway, what else does Dessel say? He said something else up here. Okay, so does abio involve a contradiction with the way nature works? Yeah, that's just what we were saying. So anyway, yeah, they use bad reasoning on this one. They like to conflate high improbability. Of course, my theory is that it is not improbable, that life is something that happens as a result of geology.
Right.
And chemistry. Anyway, okay, we'll play some more.
That's what you were referring to.
No. I'm using your words. Okay, if per your position, you can never exhaust all of the potential options from a naturalistic explanation, then it is impossible to falsify anything.
Okay, that's just bullshit.
Always, okay, hence, okay, let's think about this, Andrew. Just use your brain for a moment here. How many times do we hear there?
Okay, it's infuriating to hear him tell you to use your brain when he's not using his. Because if we found some chemical pathway that was absolutely impossible, we could then falsify that particular pathway to abiogenesis, right?
Right.
But then we could say, well, maybe there's another pathway. So I guess, we keep looking, but that's methodological naturalism.
Explanations are falsifiable. What I'm saying is that you can't deny that there might be other explanations out there, not necessarily ways to tweak one explanation, but ways to come up with other explanations. Because individual explanations can be falsified. That's just how the evidence keeps us in line with reality. Basically, you can't stray far from the evidence.
And I guess if God were to create a new whale fish man-ape pig out in the ocean, just suddenly popped up, I'd be willing to look at their side of the equation. I mean, I'm open-minded to their God intervention. If I saw it happening, like I saw the stars in the sky and the talking donkey, I mean, I'm open-minded to that. But the more I look at abiogenesis and the evolution of eukaryotes and all of that, the more answers I find, the more possibilities, the more ways that it could have happened, and the more viable hypotheses about how these things happen. None of it is impossible, but any part of it could be falsified, I think, with the right kind of work. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is that all three of us developed from an egg, from a cell, right? And we know, and it's almost magical. You would think it magic to go from an egg to us if you were looking at it 1,000 years ago. I mean, that looks like magic. How does life happen without a life force of some kind? And now we know that none of that is magic, and the Christians all agree with us that there's no magic there, that it's all chemistry and physics. So we're saying the same thing, that it was chemistry and physics going way back from the beginning, because we have no reason to think otherwise. Why would we?
Right.
I mean, if an organism can develop from a single cell into a fully functioning human being or a donkey, and the donkey doesn't talk, okay, we got to have that little rider in there. But if that can happen, then why can't life happen from very simple beginnings? So I don't know. I mean, it's the same science that we're using, and that's what keeps being missed in these conversations, that we're using that very same science to explain abiogenesis and the evolution of eukaryotes and the evolution of multicellularity, and we're finding more and more possible ways that it could have happened. So why would we look to the supernatural? Why would we look to the supernatural? So, okay.
Can you highlight Craig's last comment? I think it's a good summary of it.
Could you ask my cat to get out of the way? Oh, there. Okay.
Cat, move.
Move, cat. Loki. Everybody say Loki.
Loki.
He's not impressed.
Brother of Thor.
Okay. Yeah, he is brother of Thor, actually, literally. It's his brother's name. Okay. We would be saying supernatural doesn't exist until inductive and inferences can be made, but if the supernatural is immune to this process, that's not my fault. Okay, unpack that for me.
I think what he's saying, I think he's just summing up methodological naturalism. He's saying, okay, we're open to this possibility, but if the possibility isn't open to us, that's not our problem. Then science doesn't deal with it. Maybe there are other ways to deal with it, but science isn't the method you would use for that.
But now, if you had a cancer, a particularly complicated cancer that was developing, is there any point where you would stop and say, the devil must have did this, so there's nothing we can do about it. Let's stop, full stop. Let's pray about it. Or would you keep looking for ways that the cancer happened and try to figure out how to prevent it from happening?
Right. You can always keep looking. Even if that means looking at possibilities that seem contradictory. But yeah. And
if you keep looking, we have a phrase for that. It's called open-mindedness. It's called being open-minded about what's causing it. Those wacky Norse deities. Okay. Let's go forward here.
Did you see what Dessel said up above that?
Korg Nightwolf?
No. Let's see. Maybe it was Korg. No, it was Dessel. Yeah.
What happened?
That's the story of how Loki. Well, I don't know the full story, but yeah.
Loki, get over here. I want to check something.
The god Loki from the Norse mythology.
Not my cat.
That's right, and that's why I said those wacky Norse deities.
Okay. Run out. Oh, here we go. Yeah, for cancer. Good one, Walker. Anyway. Okay. So, seeing as how we're talking about, I probably should have invited Immutable and Walker. I didn't realize we were going to be talking about this until I looked at my transcript. I don't know if anybody else wants to get in.
Has Dan responded yet?
I don't know. I got to go check and see if he responded to me. Nope. Oh, yes. He did respond. Address not found. Oh, that was to Randolph. So Randolph never got the invite. It's a good thing because he wouldn't. I'm not sure if he'd want to have this. He wants to have the Darth conversation, I'm guessing. But no. So that address was not found. Interesting. So I got to get his email address. Okay, I'm gonna roll a little more.
All right.
If that's okay. So where am I in my transcript here?
Maybe some other unknown, undiscovered natural law that can explain.
Yeah, you see
that
he said it right there. Some undiscovered natural law. No, that's not what we're looking for in abiogenesis or evolution. We're not looking for a new natural law. We don't believe. He said it right there, right?
Don't seem remotely plausible under the known.
What's that?
You want to send Walker an email? He says he's free to join if you want.
He's down. Okay. You got it. Oh, let's see. Well, there goes my idea. I was going to be a good boy and keep her small.
Well, it's hard to turn down Walker. I just don't have.
No, I want Walker in. So
I don't have the cojones.
Oh. Well, I was thinking you could email him, but were you going to put it in chat?
I put it in email. I emailed you, Walker.
Okay. Yeah, I was just gonna say don't put in chat, just email select people if that's okay.
Yeah. Because we don't want too many people in the room. So and I hope you guys don't think I'm being an asshole about that. But going through a video, if we have too many cooks, we never get through the video. we're having enough
cake. It's just one of those natural problems of YouTube where everybody has an opinion.
Yeah. Too many foreskins and Danny skins and Danny kins and everything else. Okay, so waiting for Walker. Okay.
I think Dessel also wants to join, but I don't know. He says he's playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, Dessel is a devil.
I don't know what that means.
I'm sure you mean that in a good way, right, Speed?
I do mean that in a good way. A loving devil. Love Dessel. Should I put the goddamn link out there? So,
no, because we do want to get to the video.
Okay, yeah. Let's get the.
Maybe we can. I don't know. I'm not going to say anything.
Let's go here.
Natural laws.
Well, I would say that natural law now becomes itself a new explanation, so it's not the same as the old explanation.
Okay, right. So, are you not following the point? You're actually you're supporting my point, the underlying question I'm asking you, which is if there could always be another law that could explain something that doesn't seem possible under the known laws, then how can you actually falsify anything if you're always going to operate from a position that there may be some other unknown law that would somehow alter all of the restrictions that are currently known?
Okay, what is he talking about falsifying exactly?
I don't know exactly what he means. Well, I don't even think it matters if he knows what he means by falsification, but it's where do you put the falsification? You write that into your experimental method. How will this be falsified? And
yeah, if our theory that polynucleotides formed in a highly acidic environment because of XYZ, and then we go out and we find out that no, they don't do that, acids kind of fuck them up, then we falsified that hypothesis. But that is a very, very specific hypothesis. Now, the hypothesis that he has in his little squirrel cheeks is that God made man and God made life, right? 6,000 years ago or whatever the fuck he thinks so, right? So, but he's just not being honest about it. So if we have two competing hypotheses that, like for life, we're not talking about an overarching hypothesis that we're trying to prove abiogenesis. No abiogenesis researcher is trying to overall prove abiogenesis. He's trying to prove one particular pathway. And that is a hypothesis, and that can be falsified without any appeal to new laws, right? Okay,
Now here's a good question
Hey,
for
Walker.
our devil's lawyer, Dessel Drace, and anybody else who cares to. Isn't it true that in all systems they come to a point where they become unfalsifiable? You know, that you have axioms that you consider to be, you know, true and basic premises upon which your system is based.
Right.
Is that not? Am I misunderstanding?
Well, I mean, science is ultimately based on falsifiable axioms.
But well, that's true. Naturalism isn't necessarily the same thing as scientific method. So I'm just going to be quiet. My brain's getting confused. If somebody can help me out, that'd be great. If not, then
well, if we could,
I'm old
Go ahead.
anyway. What will I do with this information?
Sort of misunderstanding.
oh shit,
Am I roboting right now, by the way?
you are.
I am
Stop
roboting.
doing
Yeah.
that.
But I think, unsurprisingly, I think Maddox
better
is kind
now.
of misunderstanding like the scientific method.
Yeah.
Of course.
Well, because for me at least, the idea of debunking abiogenesis is extremely
Oh boy.
like it just doesn't make sense. It's like debunking biodiversity, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that. Like abiogenesis happened. It's a fact, right? We have life. It had to come from non-life. So abiogenesis happened. Now, the specific mechanism of abiogenesis is what people are testing. Just like how like we have life on Earth and it's biodiverse. So we have biodiversity, that's a fact. But the specific mechanism that created this biodiversity is evolution, right? That's what we're studying.
Yeah.
So I think he's just kind of not grasping like the idea of
let's roll.
testing
Let's
just in general.
let's roll it forward just a little further here, because
Okay.
Yeah.
he did.
Yeah, I think John.
Well,
I think
I
John
think
was talking about like a phenomenon rather than like hypothesis. Right. So no phenomenon can be unfalsified. Can be falsified if there can always be some unknown explanation.
right, and I think that gets into the other thing I wanted to say about.
Okay, that was somebody else that said. So where are we here?
So do you mind if I say something?
No, go ahead.
So Walker. Oh, by the way, how are you today, Walker?
Oh, I'm doing well, thank you.
So Walker, I think would you agree that in that statement, I think LPP is kind of misunderstanding the argument from ignorance, because in the supernatural explanation, if you want to call it that, is basically, okay, we don't understand how this could have happened naturally, therefore it's supernatural. Whereas the natural explanation is, we don't understand this, let's keep looking for a natural explanation. And those two aren't the same, because one is an argument from ignorance and based on what we don't know, and the other is not an argument from ignorance because it's not assuming anything beyond what we know, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with what y'all were kind of saying earlier. Like, the idea of anything being supernatural is like, by definition, unempirical, and therefore it's not scientific, right? So you can never really have... The scientific method isn't made to address, ideas that are non-natural.
But what they're saying,
I don't think...
what they're saying. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I would agree with what Andrew said. Like, if you say something's, we don't have a natural explanation, therefore, God did it. That's an appeal to ignorance. So, like, you're just appealing to, some unexplained phenomenon, and we're never going to figure it out. Whereas just saying, like, we don't have an explanation for it yet, but we're looking, doesn't necessarily mean we'll find it. It just means that, we're assuming naturalism, because that's what you have to do if you want to deal with any empirical data set. And then you're working from there.
At the same time, when you're assuming naturalism, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're denying supernaturalism, because there could always be a supernatural thing out there that you can't feel or touch, for instance, but
Well,
just
exactly.
science doesn't address those questions.
Yeah, I mean that's why we have a shitload of religious scientists. You know,
Right.
that's not a paradoxical statement. I mean, it's interesting how they flex all the time. Like, oh, Albert Einstein, he was a creationist, and Charles Lyell was, I mean, at least some sort of like Christian old Earth creationist. You know, like every scientific field was founded more or less by a Christian, right? I can't think of any exceptions, but there probably are some. But you know, that doesn't mean that they weren't using methodological naturalism when conducting their scientific work. Most of the greatest scientists were trying to figure out the mechanisms that God used to create the universe.
Right.
So they're suggesting that because abiogenesis has been a thing for 70 years, that now we should stop, and we aren't doing science because we're still looking. Mm-hmm. They're saying we would be doing science if we said, oh, well, we haven't found it for 70 years. It's complicated. Let's stop and say it was supernatural, because that's what they're saying. And they're also saying, I have this envelope here and I did a bunch of little amateur probability calculations and I came up with a really big number. So it's got to be supernatural. And that is scientific.
Well,
like
I back of the envelope. That a bit. I think John Maddox, I do want to qualify that a bit. I think John Maddox specifically is saying that because I've also heard him say like the same thing about evolutionary biology and all this other stuff. He's just like, even evolutionary biology, which is, you know, a much more developed field of science, I guess. I've heard him say all the time, like, oh, can you imagine how many more lives we would have saved if we had directed that money towards biochem or something like that? So I honestly, I think it's just him not wanting us to find naturalistic solutions.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's just a Maddox thing.
Yeah, they want us to stop. So, where did underlying question I'm asking you? Okay.
By the way, thanks for joining us, Walker.
Right. Yeah. Of course. Thank you. Yeah. I don't want to, I mean, I'm not a huge like philosophy dude anyway, so I didn't think that I would be controlling the conversation too much.
Nah, you are better. You are a scientific person, just like us.
Yeah.
Thanks.
What do they want us to do? They want us to stop? Okay, I'm going to try to pick up because I can't figure out where the fuck I am.
This, which was when say, for instance,
hang on a second here. I just got to do a quick search.
Yeah, go ahead and figure it out, Speed.
Holy shit! How do we get down there? Okay, well, let's go ahead. Did we miss something? Because it seems like we missed a hell of a lot. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, well.
Wait, is that Mr. ID?
Yep.
Where?
Dude, I haven't seen him around in like years.
Where's Mr. ID? Oh, right there.
He's the dude below Jungle Jargon, yeah.
Okay, so I found out where I'm at.
Okay. You have an unknown, or not unknown phenomena, but like an unexplained phenomenon. And you're trying to explain it. You don't jump to, okay, this is natural. And you also don't jump to, this is supernatural. You see where the evidence goes. So a supernatural explanation is always possible, but I'm saying that it's the last explanation you come to by virtue of the fact that we're limited by our five senses and observations and such. And
well, there really can be no last explanation though, because you just said there's always like more unknown explanations you can think
when
of.
do we finally get to the last explanation? When do you finally
right that's my point. That's why.
Okay, when do we get to the last explanation on abiogenesis or on the evolution of eukaryotes? When we find a reliable pathway that it could have happened, right? And we're still not going to know historically, going back 3 billion years or 1 billion or 2 billion or whatever it happened. We're not going to know exactly exactly which pathway it took. But if we find one viable pathway that is not, ridiculously improbable, we're probably going to say, we got it. Okay. That's when we're going to stop. Or actually, we're never going to stop because we're always going to find out more and more. So I don't know what they're asking. So why do they want us to stop?
Hmm,
Anybody got an opinion on that?
maybe they're
Well, it's
just lazy.
because I have my own ideas about like, I guess their motives and stuff, but I think at the end of the day, it's because they think they have it figured out.
Oh, do share.
Anyone who thinks that they have it all figured out is being bonkers.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the not the Christian scientists like weird cult sect, but like Christian scientists historically have been trying to figure out the mechanism God used. So even if you want to say like God did it, how did God do it? That's
Right.
that's the question that science will answer.
Right, exactly.
There's my cam mic's fucked up again.
And the real thing
Just
is
saying,
that
I guess God did
there's
it.
just a whole group. Go ahead, Walker.
Go ahead. Oh, just saying. I was just going to put like a little cap on it. Just saying that God did it isn't an answer. Saying how God did it is what science is trying to address. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. What was I going to say? I had something really cool I was going to say. Okay, I'm hitting mute again. Sorry.
Damn, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm just
Howdy.
old. I'm just getting old. This is the way it works.
Yeah, we were asking Otangelo today how God made elephants, and I couldn't get him to tell me how long it took. He got mad at me, and he rage quit because I want to know if does it take 1 minute? Is it 1 second? Is it instantaneous? Does it take 6 hours to make an elephant? Because it took God all day to make all the animals. And I'm assuming...
I believe the gestation period takes slightly less than like 2 years, I think.
Yeah.
It's
So I
about
don't
18
think he
months. I actually muted myself.
Yeah, I don't think he chose to do it that way. So it must have been faster because he got it done in 1 day, according to
It depends
Otangelo.
if you subscribe to the day age theory or not.
Yeah. So
Oh, that would be some sort of heresy to creationists because
Yeah, I know. I was
Yeah.
joking.
you're not taking God at His word. See, this is what it's all about: is a particular kind of theism, a particular kind of
right.
version of God and His word, because it is possible to be a theist and a scientist and a naturalist.
Yeah.
Well, not a naturalist.
that's why most Christian
use
sects-
methodological naturalism.
That's why most Christian sects don't take creationism, like at least young Earth creationism, seriously. At least in the modern day, it's you have like NIFB and stuff, but the overwhelming majority of Christian sects don't actually interpret that shit literally.
Yeah, but then when they do surveys on this stuff, they find some pretty high numbers. People that...
Well, I think that's more due to poor education than it is to like religious
Yeah.
indoctrination.
Yeah, and they just answer the question that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see what we got here. Standing for Truth is weighing in.
More importantly, this gets back to what you're
Well-
supposed to be defending, which you're actually providing more evidence in favor of our point, which is you're claiming that naturalism of the gaps doesn't exist. You're 150,000% substantiating the reality and the existence of naturalism of the gaps.
Okay.
When evolutionists,
Now that was
and
wonderful.
we've all experienced it constantly.
You're 150,000% substantiating the reality in the existence of naturalism of the gaps. Is that a sentence?
I guess so.
It's
There's a
it's like
subject and an object in there somewhere.
yeah. If you
So
have
there's
like
something
a
wrong.
demonstrator, that's the kind of sentences they use when they're trying to impress somebody.
You're 150,000% substantiating the reality in the existence of naturalism of the gaps. That's not a fucking well-formed sentence, John. I'm sorry.
It's
I
grammatical.
hate to correct your English,
to be
but
fair.
well,
It is grammatical.
My,
It has subject, verb, and object. He just added a couple of extra prepositional phrases that make it confusing.
yeah. My sister, when she was young, she was away for a while, and she used to send me letters, and I would spell check and grammar check them and send them back to her. And she said I
Why?
was an asshole. She said I was an asshole.
Yeah, you are.
Speed. Can you
sorry.
highlight Korag's last comment again?
Okay.
I think he put it well. It's naturalism of the gaps, if you want to call it that, which I'm not going to call it that, but like it's saying it's not favoring one over the other. It's well, it might be like a little biased, but like it's just a statement of we don't know. Like how is that a bad answer? When you don't actually know something, what are you going to say? That's the thing I think John is missing here. Sorry, Maddox is missing here, which is an argument of the gaps, if you want to call it that, is stepping outside of what you know and claiming something for what you don't know. Whereas naturalism of the gaps, quote unquote, is saying we don't know. Let's figure it out from what we do know. So,
Yeah.
Sorry,
Well, and
I
also-
probably could have phrased that better.
Naturalism of the gaps, quote unquote, isn't excluding. Like God of the gaps is, but like by definition, excluding a naturalistic process as a potential answer. Whereas naturalism of the gaps, quote unquote, is not excluding supernaturalism or like a
Right.
supernatural explanation.
So here's the difference. Okay, when we say when we refer to a supernatural explanation, we are not referring to any particular law or any particular supernatural. What we're saying is that X did it. Like for instance, last Thursdayism, which is that the entire thing was created last Thursday, cannot be ruled out, right? And so if they say God did it, they're saying the same thing as it happened last Thursday, or we're a brain in a vat and it didn't happen at all. We're just imagining it. Or
You mean my mommy and daddy weren't real?
Yeah, they weren't real. They don't exist. In fact, no, they're not real at all.
It's all Descartes' evil demon.
So, I mean, they're saying that X did it, and they're telling us to stop looking at laws that we know, because with evolution and abiogenesis, we are not appealing to any laws that have not been discovered at all. Zero. There are no new laws. In fact, laws in biology are sort of don't happen exactly. They don't work that way. So I don't know what the hell they're saying here. But anyway, SF.
Oh, sorry. Or Danny just made a comment, and for once in a while, I actually agree with him.
Yeah,
I
that's kind
think
of
he
what I
put
was
it
trying
nice.
to say, but he's smarter than me. So
A naturalistic account generates predictions, a non-natural explanation does not. Right. This is why there's a false equivalency between. Yep. Good one. Good on you, Danny. You did good.
Danny, don't forget to practice your violin, like when you're too overwhelmed with your studies or something, and that way you can play us a solo next week.
That's right.
dude, that would be
Take a
sick.
study break and play the violin.
Yeah.
I would love a violin concert on YouTube.
Yep. Okay. So SFT chimes in here shortly, I think.
Constantly say
Oh,
that
boy.
they don't know, but that's how science works. And one day, we'll figure it out. We'll have an answer. When in fact, the empirical data that we have today suggests that there is not a naturalistic explanation. Let's say for things.
Okay.
And how did you
What-
come to that
And that's
conclusion?
where he's just fucking wrong about just about everything. SFT,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. You need to sit down and read a real science book and don't write books until you've read a few.
Yep.
I mean,
And
I
so
mean,
he
Oh, go ahead.
okay. Go ahead and comment before I roll forward
I'm
because
sorry. I was just gonna say he kind of just demonstrated my point of okay, how do you know there's not a natural explanation?
right.
Because like in order to say something is supernatural, again, you have to rule out natural explanations. How do you know when you've ruled out natural explanations? So it's kind of circular, basically, if I'm interpreting it correctly.
By the way, Erica has a new. She covered the first half of chapter 4 of that guy's SFT's book on
Today?
human. No, it was yesterday, I think. Yeah, it's pretty good. It was about an hour long, and she does some pretty good takedowns of his contents.
Yeah. She does
I
good.
forgot how bad all of Tompkins' work was, but that's beside the point.
Yeah,
Okay,
Speed,
let's.
Dr. Dan is back. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I sent you an email, Dr. Dan.
Sorry.
I
Not
did.
trying to push it, just I maybe it was away. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, I want to hear what Mr. Brilliant says here.
Yep.
The guy's got it all figured out because he read some papers.
Such as the crumbling genome, Muller's ratchet, the existence of orphan genes, genome-wide functionality. I mean, I was showing papers earlier from the 70s acknowledging these major problems and destroyer of universal common ancestry.
Yeah, now isn't that rich? Muller's ratchet, was a paper on population genetics in a particular model. That's where it came from. The crumbling.
Also, Muller's ratchet exclusively applies to asexual haploid organisms. So we're talking about like bacteria and shit. It doesn't apply to sexual diploid organisms like humans.
Yeah. Yeah, so he does his Gish Gallop here. Genome-wide functionality, like ENCODE, prove that. When ENCODE will tell you that no, that isn't what they were even doing. They were trying to find interactions between things that were basically orphans. And let's see, genome orphan genes he mentions. I mean, I was showing papers earlier from the 70s acknowledging these major problems and destroyer of universal common ancestry. And why is it? God, he is just so cocky. Okay. Play a little more.
So the question is, when does it end? And when you do say you don't know, in this instance, to one of these major problems to, let's say, naturalism, then essentially it is a naturalism of the gaps. You're hoping at some point in the future that you're going to come up with an answer. Well, the whole point is universal common ancestry is not science. It's pseudoscience, it's philosophy, but yet the evolutionists want to push it like it's science. They should admit that it's not science.
Also, for a second.
I guess that's my point standing.
Oh, can I just say that, all of the things that he brought up are categorically different from the things that Maddox brought up. Maddox is claiming, an unfalsifiable hypothesis. Standing is claiming hypotheses that have already been falsified.
Right.
So it's honestly a step worse.
Speed. Can I make a request?
Yeah.
If you guys feel that we've gotten into the philosophy enough, I kind of did have a question, an unrelated question.
Yeah, sure.
For Dr. Dan. So. More scientific matters. So, but up to you guys.
Do y'all want to get into anything Darth Dawkins said? Just because that's the title.
Well, no.
We should probably change that.
No, I love doing that. I love putting a title up and having them think it's going to be about them, and then it's not.
Oh.
So I don't mind it. Yeah, but I could change the title a bit, or I'll change the description anyway, so it doesn't lead people astray, I guess. Because I don't know. I'll think about it. Anyway,
I kind of feel like we're kind of just pointing out the same stuff over and over again at this point, because they're kind of saying
we are
stuff over and over again.
Yeah, we can quit this for now.
Are there any? Well, before we do that, are there any clips of just Darth Dawkins being an asshole?
Oh,
oh boy.
Okay, maybe we can put up one or two of those just to have something.
Oh, what have we got it here? Oh, let's see. Well, there's lots of clips. He's an asshole from one end of the conversation to the other. I mean, we could, okay, where are we here? SFT, last explanation. There's some more SFT stuff. I want to play one here from SFT.
Explanations you can.
Right. When do we finally get to the last explanation? When do you finally?
Right. That's my point. That's why.
Yeah. What the fuck does he mean, the last explanation? Like, he thinks science is going to be solved at some point soon? Or what?
Yeah, to be honest, I kind of used the last a bit vaguely there, so that was on my part, kind of. But
yeah. Oh, here's something I marked as your comeback. So...
Well, I guess that's my point standing, which is that in order to say something is supernatural, you say it can't be natural. That is to say that you must have foregone knowledge of all available, of all possible natural explanations before you can say it's beyond nature. It's supernatural, and that is by virtue of the fact that we have finite, limited minds. That is impossible. So in that sense, it's not possible scientifically to go from, okay, we don't know X, therefore it's supernatural. However, it is possible to go to a natural explanation for X, because we experience the natural, or we're part of nature. So we do have knowledge.
Okay, dude.
Okay. Anyway, so I thought that was pretty good, actually.
Okay, dude.
Yeah, okay, dude. And then we got one here I marked as scientific science. Let me see what that one says.
Can I add? Hello, good morning.
Hey, how you doing, man? Look, it's been a while since I've seen you. How you been?
Fine. I was very busy here in Japan about my work. I think the reason why our science today, especially rational and empiricist, I think that there's the supernatural, because they had already pre-concluded and pre-assumed that supernatural and natural are almost the same, or there's no difference. There's no dividing line between the two. For example,
could you figure out what he was saying exactly?
Not entirely.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Okay, so we got.
I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt and say that's probably just because I was, yeah.
Yeah. So where's Dope Dawkins enters the room? Where are we here? Destroyer of universal common ancestry. Okay, something. Okay, I'll start playing where Dope Dawkins enters.
falsified, because
what did I
we
do?
didn't have a difference between simple to complex.
Oh, okay, so it goes a little bit further than that.
Man, and yeah, you made some great points there, and I agree with you. And you're right. He's young, but he wants to put himself in the ring with the men. He's better.
Oh, that's hard.
Yeah, what the fuck is the ring with the men? You know, there aren't any women allowed in this ring, or just the boys. You know, just the men. It's like
this spells it up right, sizes it up right here. Grandiose.
Yeah.
Grandiosity, practically delusional.
I mean, oh, go ahead.
The sexism of these fuckers. It just, you know, I mean, just talking about it like that in that manner, the ring with the men, and not only that, but ageism too. You know, so they're discounting anybody that's less than 18. But if you want to throw yourself in the ring with the men, you know, with us big boys. Like they fucking know something. We got an Uber driver and we got a fucking ShamWow salesman who believe that they've destroyed evolution. They falsified evolution, and they haven't written any papers. They have written books though. But Jesus Christ, these people! What is wrong with them? I don't know. So here we go: Darth versus a rational empiricist.
Yep, coming through.
Do we have any silly atheists present?
No. I think right now we've only got one atheist. He's not silly.
Yeah, he's one of the better ones.
Well, all atheists.
You're one
silly.
of the better ones.
Yeah.
I'm currently only revealing part of my ego at this point. You look deep down inside, and I shall become the silliest person you can imagine.
Well, are you an atheist?
I guess in a broad sense, yes.
Okay. Do you positively believe that God is the necessary precondition of all facts?
No, if I understand the question correctly.
Okay, so then you believe in the independence of fact.
Okay, can somebody fucking unpack that for me?
What was his
What
question?
the hell? Okay, I guess okay, brother. Okay, understand that. Then
Do you believe God is the dependence of facts or something like that?
then you believe in the independence of facts without the reference to God. That's one thing he said. So I guess in a broad sense, yes, okay. of all the facts, no, if I understand the question correctly, okay, so then, then you believe in the independence of facts without reference to God. Okay? The independence of facts without reference to God. So basically, if I have a fact, my coffee cup is almost empty, I believe in the reference of that without God, to tell you the truth. I mean, would anybody deny that, right? So I think you're supposed to say yes, that you do believe in the independence of facts without reference to God, right? And then he must have a script come back for that.
Yeah.
So
I hope he has like a Google Docs page open where it's just like a dialogue tree.
yeah,
all these yes or
exactly.
no questions, and there's like a flow chart that he follows.
Yeah, and unfortunately, nobody ever follows his yes line, so he never actually gets done with it. He just rages,
Yeah.
and he keeps ganging up. Okay, so I want to highlight that in Devil Red, because I think Darth Dawkins is the devil. Have I told you guys about that theory?
If not, do you think he's like the Antichrist?
I think he's actually the devil. No, he's actually the devil himself.
Well, the devil is a tempter, so maybe he's trying to lead these other Christians astray.
I think
so.
all his
Just by,
neighbors
like,
turned him
this
onto the
stupid shit he
internet
says
in
now.
order to keep him from shouting at children to get off his lawn all the time.
I think he kicks puppies. He would kick a puppy. He just boot that little sucker right across the yard. So he just strikes me as that kind of person. Okay.
Facts without reference to God, then, right?
I think that's possible, yes.
No, I didn't ask you if it was possible. You do not believe that, you don't positively believe that God is the necessary precondition of all facts.
Danny,
Consequently, then by default, you will believe in the independence.
why doesn't somebody just say, fuck you? I said possibly. That's my answer.
Yeah. So what the hell did I
Facts
do?
from
What the fuck? Okay.
God, what did you do there?
I double clicked real fast and it, made it full screen or
Stop
turned it
clicking
into
speed.
theater mode. I gotta stop clicking so fast. I told you I was spry for my age. Okay, then you.
Lightning on the trigger.
Yeah, lightning on the trigger. Okay, the necessary precondition of all facts. Okay, now he reworded it slightly. Okay, believe that God is the necessary precondition of all facts. Okay, that's different than saying God is independent of all facts. Okay, so now he's saying that the precondition. So he modified. What I notice he does is he keeps modifying the statement all the way through. And just when you're, and you remain very confused about what the fuck he means, because he sort of subtly modifies it all over the place. Like we'll go on here a little bit. Do you guys want to do this, or do you want to do this another day? Because there's a lot to unpack here. So
yeah, I was kind of hoping to get Dr. Dan here so I could ask him my question if that's okay. But
yeah, if we can get him in.
Is there a
I'm
Dr. Dan in the house?
basically I'm trying to flesh out an argument about phylogenetics.
Okay. I just put the link in chat, so God knows.
That is something I never even considered doing when I was 17.
Put
the link in chat.
No, fleshing out an argument about phylogenetics.
Oh. Yeah.
Had it even been
I didn't start doing that
when
till
I
I was
was
like
in
18.
high school?
Yeah.
I don't know why that makes me feel flattered.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dan says he's skipping YouTube.
What?
But you're saying that while watching YouTube.
Yeah.
This is true.
Okay, you guys set
I
up a
agree.
dedicated.
If y'all have he said we should set up a dedicated phylogenetics chat. And if
should.
y'all would like to have me there, I would love to be there because that's my favorite topic. So.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
But if you don't want me there, that's chill.
Oh, we do.
Oh yeah.
Sure, you're always wanted.
Yep. Okay, then I don't know. So I think we should unpack the Darth thing more, but I got more work to do. But what I noticed is that he keeps subtly changing the question, and then he subtly changes the definition of God over and over again.
Well, I think that's why it's called presuppositionalism, right? Because you're presupposing the question, or you're presupposing in your question, right?
But they change it. They keep changing what they're saying. So, like he'll say, he calls it, what is that? What is it that is fundamental and ultimate and metaphysically primary, the source of all facts? And that is not God. Well, I would say the cosmos, reality, right?
I would say there's nothing metaphysical that's the source of facts. At least, once again, that's my personal interpretation.
That's primary?
What does it mean by primary?
Yeah, I know. Like a primary source, like one point source. Yeah. Because when you think about the cosmos, I think the cosmos came whole, with lots of parts, or it always was, that there's something outside of the universe that always was, basically. Because time sort of disappears as soon as you get out of our 4D space-time universe. Mm-hmm. Anyway. But it just goes on. So Jason Torn, I don't know if we met.
Oh yeah, can you hear me?
Hello, how's it going?
Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah. I don't know you guys. I I frequent a couple atheism, philosophical channels, and I saw this come up because I follow. I listen into the logical, probable, plausible, like craziness and standing for truth, and obviously Darth Dawkins. So I was really intrigued that you guys came up on my channel. So I just thought I'd pop in.
Well, don't worry, you have like 7 or 8 other sadists or masochists in here. So.
Yeah, exactly.
We do this all the time. I mean, this is basically our lives following Standing and LPP and Cell Cordova and all the other.
Man,
oh my God!
Maybe it's your life. For me, it's just a hobby.
That's so hilarious because every time Sal Cordova, that guy drives me insane with his. Oh my God! I'm so glad that you mentioned that. So
okay, we did a weather report.
What was that?
What about Sal drives you insane?
That he purports to say that he's a scientist and that he has no publications. He doesn't have a terminal degree in what he does, but he likes to make these claims that he is extremely knowledgeable in these topics. And that, he's multiple times has said things like, I have like 4 or 5 degrees, I think one time I asked him what his degrees were. He got really pissed that I asked him that. And it's very common that if you feel that you're an expert in a particular area and you're claiming that you have some advanced degrees, it's not a problem if somebody asks you that. You just explain your background and your degrees, and that's what it is. But
right,
he got really upset. So
I think he managed to get did he get a degree in biochemistry? I think it was from a Bible college, though.
I'm going to make a joke about degrees, but okay.
My understanding is that his background is that he has multiple bachelor's degrees from some location. So he was like a triple major. So he must have taken some classes that allowed him to be a triple major. He claims that's 3 degrees. And then he does have a master's, I think in physics from Johns Hopkins. That's to the extent of his background. So
yeah, and his
somebody else.
Oh, hey, Jason.
Guess who's here?
Would you mind if I called you that, or do you prefer something else? Or
no, totally. That's totally fine.
So in the chat, you said you were a climate scientist, and so I think you might be. If I'm asked a relevant question, would be to. Sorry, trying to crystallize my thoughts here. Do you think that degrees and such are always what do you think is a good indicator of scientific expertise? Is it formal training? Is it degrees? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, good question. I mean, I certainly don't think that you have to have a degree to be to have a strong understanding of a particular topic. However, I think it's when people claim that they are autodidacts or that whatever, I think that's very difficult. I think it's really difficult to have an advanced level of knowledge in a particular area when you do not have an advanced degree. If you're smart enough to say, I can study this on my own and I can have a level of understanding that is equal to a PhD, you are a very, very, very small minority of people. Then you happen to have an extremely high IQ and that you can do that. I think that that's a rarity. So when people say that they have extensive knowledge in an area but they don't have a terminal degree and they get really upset when you ask them about that, I'm a little suspect. So I don't think that there's not like there's a correlation there, but certainly it's not a necessity. But
yeah,
so that's kind of my general position.
Anyway, I'm an
I think a lot of
autodidact,
times.
but I work hard at it.
Let's not call you that. I'm going to cringe if that happens.
Okay, I need to mention Darth Dawkins and Otangelo came into the room, and I put them in the backstage. And the reason I did that is, number one, I do not want to be on here forever. We got Peter, Darth, and Otangelo, and that is a recipe for fucking doom. As far as the rest of my
Go on
evening
to
goes.
Answers in Atheism. Go on to Answers in Atheism.
Oh my god! Thank you,
Oh my
Peter.
god, you had me confused for a second.
Oh,
I was like,
I know. I
Peter,
thought, how did he get back in the room? Anyway,
I know.
So Darth and
You got to give
Otangelo.
kudos to Otangelo because he does a great acting job.
Don't make me mute you, Peter. Okay, I'm trying to say something here. Otangelo and Darth would love to have you on at a different time, but now is not the time. So if you guys could just have some patience, we'll bring you in, and if you want, and you can choose who you're in here with and everything, okay? But please, not tonight. We're not headed down that road. We're talking about other stuff right now. So, okay, is that fair?
I guess
Darth
so.
left.
I mean,
Yeah.
You are a dictator, so I mean, there is no.
Am I a dictator? Immutable? Do I just remove people from streams just for the hell of it?
He's a ruthless despot.
Number one, is there a constitution that doles out the rights and privileges of membership to this particular YouTube station?
Well, Scott. Once upon a time, I did have mod powers in this channel. I don't know what the hell happened, but I would like to.
Well, I'm going to be quiet now and let you two talk. I think y'all need to have a good hug.
Speed. Yeah.
Speed. If I promise to play nice, can you let in Otangelo? I feel a little bit bad.
This needs.
No,
this needs
I don't want to do it
session.
tonight. I don't want to do it tonight, Peter.
Okay.
I don't have the bandwidth. Okay, so Cel Cordova is very much in my sights lately. We did a weather report on one of his religious things earlier, and
what was that? I missed it.
What's that?
Can you give a summary of the thing you covered from Sal? Because I was not here for that.
Oh, it was just on some religious bullshit he was doing last night. But mostly what I go after with Cel Cordova is, even though I don't have degrees, and I am famously a high school dropout, and I have a drug-addled brain, according to Cel Cordova, I do go very much in depth on the papers in the molecular biology, and I come back at him with real fucking molecular biology. So we're going to be doing a lot more of that, because Cel Cordova knows enough of the lingo that he can be very persuasive, and that pisses me off. Okay, when people are persuasive, yeah.
So for me, I actually like that. I like when somebody attempts to make a persuasive argument, because
it's fun.
There's certain there's certain things you can ask about. You can ask a person once they've demonstrated a certain level of proficiency within a field. And it's like, okay, Sal, if you're claiming like that this wouldn't be possible, like what would you expect like this protein to do, or a protein to look like? Like if it was designed, like is there a reason it should appear this way, or
Yeah.
There's certain things you can do with that. And I think to answer, I think it was Jason who was talking earlier. I might be wrong. But sometimes, like, and a lot of times actually, the way you tell a person is an expert in a field almost rarely is by a person having to tell you that they're an expert in the field.
Right.
A lot of times, other people a lot of times other people will do that for them. A lot of times other people will recognize people in their field, like organic chemistry or biochem or whatever, and say, oh yeah, by the way, this guy is like really solid when it comes to this type of chemistry or this kind of like research in this like minute area of physics. James Tour, I mean, is very famously like recognized in synthetic chemistry fields for his achievements, like with nanotechnology and things like that. However, how much that carries into fields like prebiotic chemistry and chemistry that's relatively unexplored, I don't know, because the approaches you use with synthetic chemistry to try and derive a certain product are very specific. It's very planned out to try and get from point A to point B in the fewest number of steps possible. But with prebiotic Earth, with what life had to start with, it couldn't have been that way. Molecules don't have this kind of like inbred sense of agency that directs them towards complexity or towards forming, like ribose over any other of the, over any other monosaccharide.
So we have a liar in here.
The types of, and to me, I mean, Dr. Dan, me and you have talked about this before, like the types of rules like that must govern abiogenesis to kind of, in a way, produce life are going to be far different than that of any kind of traditionalistic chemistry that we use to build materials.
So before we go any further, Jason, do you have a YouTube channel?
I'm on Twitch, Twitch TV, Jason Torn. But yeah, I need to start doing more. I got this written out script to go up against Darth. So like, I've been obsessed with that guy. Like, I find him fascinating.
So are you here to troll?
Okay, Jason, will you please do it on this channel? I could probably set it up. I think I might be able to get him back. That would be cool. But,
go on to Answers in Atheism.
I just made you a moderator, so if you want to put a link to anything you got out in chat, that'll be fine.
Okay.
You can promote anything you got. Okay, I just wanted to get that done.
And I'd be willing to go up against him like at some point in time. I just want to be ready for it,
Okay.
But he I don't want to get bamboozled. I don't want any mumbo jumbo and you're incoherent and you're not focused and how old are you and
right.
We'll set it for once and all. Okay, I'm going to expose this guy for the lying piece of trash that he is.
Peter, I love the Darth soundboard.
Peter, I told you should have come in here as Darth Dawkins and just use the soundboard. You ruined it.
Tanya, I saw you coming, so I thought I'd be the cool guy you want to meet on here. So
yeah, pretty cool.
By the way, I got a question for Dr. Dan. I've been talking about you quite a bit today. Do you know a young and upcoming atheist channel called Atheist Junior?
Yeah, I've talked about it.
I'm familiar with Atheist Junior a little bit. I know some of his stuff.
Yeah, he's going to do a debate with Kent Hovind this Friday. And okay. I'm helping him. I'm helping him prepare for that. Jackson Wheat has chimed in. I've asked RJ. I haven't seen RJ yet, but could be he's not online. He's at least using one of the things you throw at Hovind.
I'm sure RJ will be there.
The algae.
I mean, look, Hovind does literally every debate Hovind does. The topic does not matter. It just off the top of my head. So the one with Dapper Dino about whether birds are dinosaurs, the one with Guts Gibbon about human evolution, the one with me about macroevolution. He literally, and those span like 18 months, and the intro that he does is identical in all of them.
Exactly
so
the same.
I don't know what topic Atheist Junior is debating, but you know what intro he's going to use. Just what it's going to be.
He's got a doozy of a topic, and so read his opening statement, which is, I think, pretty amazing for someone who has never done something like
Wait,
this before.
I actually think I saw something about this. Was this the topic about like evolution being taught? Was that what this is?
Yep. Should evolution be taught in public schools?
Well, I mean, that'll be that. I'd love to see what Kent says about that one, because that's his whole. I don't mind it. I just don't think taxpayers should pay for it shtick. Which, I mean, coming from Kent, that's kind of rich, but
that's not entirely true.
That's what Kent says, but that's not what Kent means.
No,
that's just what he uses to weasel out of corners.
We did. So let's just say he's well prepared. I'm not going to say anything because it will.
I'm looking forward to it.
Blow over. It's this Friday on Standing for Truth channel.
Oh,
and then on Saturday we're going to do an after show on Amy Newman's channel. So I'm
all right. Cool.
Well, look, can I just excited.
That does sound like an interesting topic. Can I just say I popped in because y'all were talking about Sal, and I've interacted with Sal a lot for 6 years, 7 years,
really?
Like going back to Reddit. And then before that, we didn't interact like directly, but so it was on Reddit that I first like kind of quote unquote met Sal, and I was like, I think I recognize that username. I'm going to Google that. I was like, oh, it's that guy from like the blog days from like back in like the Dover trial, like in 2005. Like it was going back that far. And so I just want to say, I will preface this by saying I cannot believe I'm saying this, but I will say that Sal Cordova is in the universe of YouTube, like Young Earth creationists.
On the bottom?
No. He's near. He is near / is the top.
I'm gonna have to. I gotta remove you, Dan.
Dude, no. Listen, you know all the Yek channels, okay? And you look. You know all the channels, and we can agree that, look, there are no good arguments for young Earth creationism. There's not geology, physics, none of the arguments work, right? But in the universe of people who make Yek arguments, you played a clip earlier. That I caught before. I think it was before I left for like an hour and came back. It was SFT on LPP's channel, and it was just listening to that phrase. Just like if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's gibberish. But it was person A on person's B channel, and it was a litany of arguments that have been debunked for between 5 and 30 years. Right? It was just awful. And if you listen to Sal, right. Oh, his papers were from the 70s. Yeah. When they acknowledged this was a problem 50 years ago. Yeah, because we found the solution 30 years ago, dude. Yeah. So, but if you listen to Sal, he'll actually say, yeah, that's a bad argument. Like, he'll straight up say, like, here's the arguments I think are good. Here's the arguments I think are bad. Whereas most YouTube creationists will just agree with every creationist argument, even if they contradict each other. And I think Sal needs credit for that one. And the second thing I think Sal deserves credit for is, yes, he doesn't have like an advanced degree in biochem or evolution or genetics or whatever, right? He doesn't. But he knows a lot. We could pull up a biochem paper or an evolution paper, and like me and Sal could go through that paper in significant technical detail and talk about it as to people who have reasonable expertise in whatever that paper is about, right? And that is not true for just about any other YouTube young Earth creationist you could name. So I just want to, I don't want to say that Sal is right, because I disagree with him on just about every substantive issue you could come up with. But in terms of being able to have the discussion, I just want to I think Sal Cordova, I think there's a difference between 2021 Sal Cordova and like 2006 Sal Cordova, right? I think there's you need to distinguish between those two. I think 2021 Sal Cordova on YouTube is one of the better people to have a complex technical discussion with on the nuts and bolts of evolution and creationism.
Right.
I don't think he's right. I don't think he makes good arguments, but I think he is better at having that discussion than most other people. And I just want to defend him to that extent.
Yeah, I have my. I'm not going to make public my. I'm not going to publicly say anything against Sal Cordova. I would never do that. You know me. I would,
already,
right?
okay.
Oh, okay. But I would like to have a conversation with you in private about a couple of things that I've noticed, just things that worry me. But no, Sal.
I would be happy to.
The reason I'm concentrating on Sal is because he actually brings up actual good science that I can dig into. Whereas SFT and LPP, like LPP has never had an argument ever. I mean, he has nothing. All he says is, it's a code. So, somebody coded it. That's all he ever says, And it's just like,
okay.
I love Sal because of that.
Isn't that the thing I told you guys like a year ago?
Yeah.
When I heard Maddox's argument.
Yeah,
it's literally just a. His literal argument is it's a code, therefore it must have a coder. I'm like,
Yeah, he keeps asking me to do comeback videos. It's like, okay, as soon as you come up with something, I will. But Cordova, he's a rich mind. I mean, you could just dig into Cordova weeks on end. I love him. I love Sal.
I'll elaborate this question if I need to, and hopefully, like, if Dr. Dan, if you're not familiar with the Tor situation, just say it before I say this question.
Wait, the Tor? What do you mean, like the Tor
James
abiogenesis
Tor?
series he's been doing?
Tor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll ask this question: why is it that like a lot of creationists are taking like the Tor approach to like the origins question instead of like being more frontal and aggressive with it? Because Tor, to my knowledge, and I haven't watched his series, so what it seems to me like that Tor's been doing, because I did see his talk at the Discovery Institute, is he's mostly like throwing up this barrier of like, we don't know how it happened type of thing.
Right.
But not actually dealing like with primary literature or, like work that's considered relevant to abiogenesis within the past, say, 10, 20 years. And to me, like the biggest question I've always had regarding James Tor is like he does synthetic chemistry, and I don't imagine that it's so far divorced of a field that he couldn't at least critique the field of like prebiotic chemistry. And the question I ask creationists is, given you guys like have this canon of a body of like for a source of information, why hasn't Tor, like if he's so concerned about this, like actually published, like a paper regarding, critiques of like experimental design or like the veracity of certain conclusions drawn from prebiotic chemistry research?
Yeah.
Because that's the appropriate way to respond to the field. But he hasn't done that, to my knowledge.
They're all doing this Bible first thing, and no matter what they do, they will always like Sal Cordova will say, "Oh yeah, this is a bad argument against evolution, and this is, and then he'll come up with his argument, and they always move forward and they find some way to word an argument, right? That will move it forward, and all Tor does is he talks about one reaction after another, shows off his expertise in organic synthesis, and then he says God did it. But they start there, and that's the problem. And they're going to just keep us, but they keep us moving and running, and I actually enjoy the race. I enjoy this.
So my thing is like, I genuinely think Tor could add something to the field by means of critiquing it, by means of like proposing.
He could, yeah.
I think that's fair.
By means of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely think his background could provide like valid critiques into, like better experimental methodology, and like what better simulating environments could be and things like that, because he is experienced like that. That's not something I deny. Yep. But it's the confusing thing is like, why? Okay, most creationists like play hardball. Like they'll actually, to some extent, do research of their own and try to counter like technical literature, but to me it's so weird like why Tor has stayed so passive and why so many people who are like pro Tor have kind of taken this weird silent route.
You don't want to be confused about their intent. Their intent is to convert you to young Earth creationism or creationism. Their intent is not to do science. So, so they will only go as far as they need to go to confuse you. That's
right,
it.
But they want, the thing is, though,
Can
they
I
want
just
to make
can I just say?
Sure, go ahead.
Can I just say what I was gonna say in response to Immutable there was I don't want to speculate, but and then Speed was just like, here's why, and I appreciate that because that was basically that's basically what I think, but I didn't want to be like bad intentions, that's why. But I think that's probably right because like James Tour, like one example that I've come up against a lot is the chirality problem, right? The left-handed amino, I think it's left-handed amino acids, right-handed nucleic acids. Maybe I always forget which is which. Doesn't matter. But like, there's like 3 or 4 different ways to solve that problem, and the answer you get from someone like James Tour is, well, none of those are good enough, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, do the math and show why. Do an experiment and show why the experiments that show why those are good enough, show why that rate of enrichment is not sufficient, right? Like do the math to show why that doesn't work. And they don't do that. And I would love to see that. I would love to see James Tour or Michael Behe or one of the other like real scientists that are involved in this, like actually like doing their stuff, like go up against peer review and like actually make your case, and they're just not interested in doing it. So with that, I'm actually gonna jet. I just wanted to jump in, and once again, I cannot believe I'm saying these words out loud. I wanted to jump in and defend Sal for a few minutes. So
yeah. Well,
mistake, Dr. Dan. There's no solution, Dan. Stop lying.
Yeah, stop lying. There's no solution. Just give up.
Dan, can I respond to what you said real quickly and maybe get like final thoughts on this?
Yeah, go ahead, sure. And then I'm gonna like go to bed.
So,
and I want to thank you on something.
Yeah. So my big thing is, look, even though I have a background in chemistry, my specialty is in organic chemistry. So people are far able to correct me on this point. But my perspective is, if you're viewing prebiotic chemistry and the origin of life problem is something like, let's put things into a pot, heat that pot to a certain temperature under certain environments, and just watch the system go.
Yeah, life will come out.
That type of approach is like exceptionally naive to me because, like most papers have pointed out, this type of endeavor is something that's interacting with a very dynamic environment, and even if one reaction fails or produces very low, let's say it produces low ribose, it could be the case that the other things it produces in the environment that it produces them in are just as unstable, right? It's less an argument about the chemistry, but it's more an argument about like the kind of like dynamic element to origin of life. This whole thing about we need to be able to simulate the conditions once we understand the reactions that are feasible and can work.
Okay.
And
Dr. Dan wants to get out, so I just want Dr. Dan, I want to thank you for coming in here and balancing my unbelievable aggression towards Sal Cordova, because I jump on every twitch. Right?
Look,
so thank you.
Sal and I, Sal, I don't know if he watches your stuff, but Sal,
he's afraid to.
We have a history of, a years-long history, some of it contentious. So anyone who's familiar with our interactions on Reddit over the years will know that I'm not just saying this stuff out of like just being nice for nice's sake. Like I actually do think that YouTube Sal is better than most YouTube young Earth creationists, if not all. And I'm knowing Sal as I do over the years, I'm astonished but it's true. And you know what? It is what it is. And I really do. I've had a number of really productive, technical, really nice conversations with Sal over the last year or so. And I can only go by my experience, but that's where I'm coming from. So with that, I'm going to say good night to everybody.
Good night.
Have a great night. Thank you for, as always, thanks for listening.
Congratulations on your last lesson.
Yeah.
There's another really good thing that's There's another really good thing that Sal does too, and it's a really minor point, but it's a really important one, which is that when you raise a good argument against Sal, he will acknowledge it. He won't agree with it always.
Yeah.
But he will acknowledge.
He acknowledges it, but then he doubles down. Like on the fitness thing, he acknowledged a whole bunch of stuff, and then he took a clip out of context and made fun of something that I said out of context, which sounded ridiculous. And then he doubled down on the whole goddamn argument as if he never got a single point I made. There is one point though, signs and lines in mice. He was going mice and rats. He was going on about that on SFT's channel, and I did the research and I came down on him, and he quit using it. So he does. I guess he does. He is honest in that way. He quit using that one.
There's a way in which he's kind of like you, Speed, in the sense that he's kind of disenchanted with philosophical arguments. So y'all share that in common.
To be honest, Danny, there's
I love philosophical arguments.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do.
You don't know what you like.
What happened to Danny?
I will say that that's probably a true statement.
Where did Danny go? I got the fucking power.
That, don't you?
Doing what? I didn't do nothing. I did nothing.
Being a tyrant.
I did nothing. I'm a good man.
You're a good man.
Go on to Answers in Atheism.
Nice.
Okay.
God doesn't exist.
Here's a fun question. If you had to say a creationist made a good argument, what would be their... Okay. If you had to make like a best creationist argument tier list, what would be the best argument that creationists make, in your opinion?
I have my answer. I've thought about it a lot. I think personally the best argument is just the argument from like how pretty the natural world is. Sort of like the whole incredulity of like, yeah, I honestly think that's the best one. Because the natural world is extremely pretty.
Isn't that
okay, wait a minute. Walker, you know about look at the flowers in The Walking Dead, don't you? You know what that's a reference
I'm not saying
to.
it's a good argument. I think it's just it's the argument I personally find the most compelling because I think the natural world is super pretty.
Yeah.
I mean, did you mean creationism? Did you mean young Earth creationism, or did you mean
young Earth creationism?
Creationism.
Oh,
I don't know of a single argument
for young Earth creationism. Number one, we've aged the Earth. It's not 6,000 years old.
I'll tell you which one I find most convincing. Well, not convincing really, because I don't accept the argument. But the one I find kind of the least egregious, and that's probably the Kalam cosmological argument.
That's still not young Earth creationist.
Yeah, that's like theistic.
Yeah, that's general.
Yeah, but you see young Earth creationists bring that one up because they do at times bring in like, what caused the Big Bang? It's like
probably argue for certain fiscal policies as well. But I mean, we're wanting to know what like.
I mean, there are all kinds of arguments around, like you were saying, differing cosmological or transcendental arguments for the existence of God, but to make a claim that the Earth is 6,000 years old is a very factually based claim that can be refuted with factual evidence. And most people, like even most philosophers like William Lane Craig, who are making arguments around the Kalam, etc., I'm sure are not saying the Earth is 6,000 years old. That's a much higher level to meet. I don't even know what you would bring up. I mean, they all would just get shot down. I mean, I guess. Whatever. Go ahead.
I don't want to interrupt you. The thing is, though, it's like, if that were actually true, nothing in chemistry makes sense. Like, because literally certain like elements beyond helium, for instance, wouldn't have enough time to form. Wouldn't have had like enough time to be, kind of formed in the heart of stars.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, you could go on and on and on and on and on and how many things that you could be like, but what about this? And what about this? And what about this? I mean, I don't even know how they get around it. So
I don't think they try to always address it though. It's like, oh, but we have a model like white hole cosmology, which I don't even know what the hell that is, but it's like this, like people say it works.
I mean, Kent Hovind, what he ends up doing is restating like scientific premises that are that they're just like the most superficial of a position, and then he's extrapolating it to his young Earth position, like his issue about like the orbit of the moon and its linear progression outwards can be traced back, and therefore the Earth can't be a certain age because of that orbital cycle. But I mean, if you go into any level of detail of the complexity of that, it can be refuted, and no legitimate scientist. I mean, you could point to article after article that would not support that, but he's just taking a very tiny piece of that, and he uses that on every different topic to support his position. He never goes down into any detail.
So well, that's all they do is that they henpeck little pieces of it. But Danny, you asked me what a good argument for young Earth creationism is.
I thought that was a mutable question.
Mutable. Okay, that was you. Okay, coming from you, I can't think of a good argument for young Earth creationism. I can think of some real problems for basically abiogenesis up through multicellular animals, and one of them would be DNA. Basically the switch from RNA to DNA. That's a tough one. Eukaryotic cells, basically the formation of the nucleus. I would have said that was a tough one a month ago, but I'm now finding that it's not so tough. So
tough,
but an argument
probabilistically.
What's that?
So
tough mechanistically or tough probabilistically? Like
mechanistically, probabilistically is not a problem when it comes to early Earth. So mechanistically, I haven't looked into basically the switch from RNA to DNA, and that is that's kind of a tough one. But then I was talking to Demeter today, and I told him that, and he knows a lot about that field. That's what he works in. So he said, no, that's not a tough one either. It's an easy one. And I'm like, okay. So all I got to do is go dig into it. But every little piece, like they always say, how did this evolve? And I go look, and I find tons of ideas and mechanisms, like for eukaryote, basically for the formation of the nucleus and the nuclear pore complexes. There is a ton of really good information out there, and there's a lot of really good genomic information that shows you how these protein families were shared and evolved, and you'll find that one thing is used in the membrane of the nucleus, and you'll also find out that it's used in prokaryotes, and I mean, it's just all over the place. But these are problems, but they're not arguments for young Earth creationism.
Yeah,
there isn't a good one. There isn't one.
And to kind of tie it back to what Jason was saying too, like, here's the thing, right? I could accept like a superfluous piece of data that's inaccurate totally, but I could accept it as being accurate and say, okay, well that's a piece of evidence, that seems to suggest the Earth is 6,000 years old. But here's the thing you won't see a lot of other creationists do, is that let's say that there is a piece of evidence which does that, and it does it in a legitimate fashion. And you now say to yourself, okay, well, let's weigh that against like what's known. Let's compare this to all other research that we do have, that measures the date of the Earth, right? And okay, here's like 1,000,000,001 articles that all give roughly the same answer. They're all giving the same answer for that 1,000,000,000, and now we have one that says, oh, it's 6,000. Well,
yeah.
What conclusion should I draw? I should draw the one that's been, repeated the most, like the answer that seems to come up the most times. Because if there's a discrepancy within like the type of conclusion that I've drawn, more than likely it's an error within the experiment and the methodology used to analyze it, rather than that result being actually correct. Most times, like you can say, like in statistics, you can predict it, right? When you do like Gaussian and normal distribution, there's outliers within theories. You expect to a certain extent that your theory accommodates like 99-point-something% data, but the other parts of it lie on extrema. There are certain errors that are accounted for by by insufficiency to measure it and other stuff like that. But that's something, I mean, those kind of concepts of understanding, for instance, when you have a body of data and comparing one piece of data to the entirety of what's known and measuring consistency, you don't see creationists do that a lot.
No.
You see that kind of driving with their initial assumption about what they believe to be true.
I mean,
well, they come up with a wedge and then they stop, full stop. They come up with a problem and they don't expand it or look at it.
I mean, these topics, I mean, I'll use the example of a flat earth as an example, which is what we're talking about are complex systems. Like the earth is a complex system. So if you've got a piece of evidence that would suggest the earth is 6,000 years old, that piece of evidence needs to fit within that complex model of an earth that is 6,000 years old. That means that there must be other bits of data that will bolster that. And when you put them all together, it starts to form a model that can suggest that the earth is 6,000 years old that all works together. And if you find other components that are in opposition of that, that might suggest that that model that you've constructed is not actually valid. Same thing with the flat earth. It's like they want to be like, look, if I put the sun here and the moon here and I make the earth like this, I can actually get this to work. I'm like, well, what about this other thing, atmospheric conditions or gravity? I'm like, oh, that causes a contradiction in that particular model. Same thing with like young earth creationism. If they had evidence which would construct a model that might suggest that the earth is 6,000 years old, great. But I mean, that just doesn't exist. I mean, you can cherry pick things and try to make an argument for that one thing. But if you had like 10 things and try to put it all together to see how it would fit, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting too. I mean, go ahead.
Standing in Poop insists that he has this huge model for a young Earth, for the flood model, and he insists that we're not understanding it. And then I go and listen to them, and they came up with ideas like they're talking about a heat sink. There's a problem with radioactivity turning the Earth into plasma, but somehow they think that got converted into kinetic energy, and it pushed the continents at about 7 miles an hour. And then,
do they not? Okay, wow. Okay, whoa.
Oh, you gotta listen.
Do they not know what like tension is? Do they not know what happens when you have like two stationary bodies?
Well,
and then you move them apart like at a accelerated speed?
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, there's another problem with that. Like heat energy does not convert into mechanical energy unless you have a containment, like a piston, right, that turns it into mechanical energy through the expansion of a gas. How in the fuck did that happen in the ocean? I mean, if the ocean is heated up to the temperature of plasma and you set it next to a continent, the continent is not going to move; it's going to melt.
So my problem with a lot of Standing's like model, quote unquote, is that it doesn't. First of all, it doesn't count as a model because there's no math or supporting data. Like if you actually want to propose a model, you have to show how your model works. If you just conjecture things and you leave it up to like other people to do the actual hard math, the nuclear physics and all that other shit, then it's not a model. You know, it's at best ad hoc like explanations that could support the data if someone eventually does the math.
It's
and then
hypothesis.
Also, it's not even. I mean, I think you're being generous still.
Yeah,
but yeah,
for instance, like to be fair to him, right? There's certain things I can think of like geometrically that I don't know how to embed like within the language of mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean that.
But the claims that he's making are definitely testable.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And also another problem with his like idea of a model is just that a lot of his claims within this said like young Earth model are like tautologically contradictory. You know, he has two things that he proposes, like you know, with my example, like whenever I debated him on Neanderthals or whatever, just the idea that inbreeding creates genetic diversity when inbreeding is defined as
Oh Jesus! Hal.
Well, so he was saying that the Neanderthals were an inbreeding tribe that split off like super early, and because of their inbreedingness, they became more divergent somehow, right? They They
How the
genetically degenerated. A lot more mutations were entering this population. But the technical, like, population genetics definition of inbreeding is the probability of homozygosity from descent. How can you have an increased probability of homozygosity if you're also increasing the number of mutations? Like, those are objectively opposites.
Yeah, and he has said that the Neanderthals mutated rapidly because it was so cold.
And well, I mean, that's just one example where it's a direct contradiction. You know, he has, I'm sure if you looked in any of his claims about physics or any of his claims about cosmology, you would find the same shit there. It's just that's the field that I know.
Wouldn't a limited bottleneck achieve that?
A limited what do you mean?
Like an extended bottleneck of a low population?
It wouldn't fix more. Population bottlenecks increase the likelihood of fixing alleles that are already present. But when you have a small population, you're not introducing new alleles, right?
Oh, yeah. So his issue is he's trying to say new alleles arise while also...
Yeah, because he's trying to accumulate, 500,000 years of genetic diversity within like 600 years. And he's saying that's coming from inbreeding, which just doesn't make sense.
I think
it was the second part I got confused on. Okay.
The only time a high mutation rate is going to work is not with a bottleneck. It's got to be a large population. Like bacteria will kick into a high mutation rate, but they have extremely large populations. If you had high mutation with a small population or a bottleneck, I think extinction would happen very quickly. Right?
I don't know about that, because if you had a high mutation rate, especially if something like bacteria have this magical ability to kind of like share genes with each other. So if there's one that manages to kind of stumble across, an allele that happens to confer an advantageous trait, now that sucker gets transferred
but it's going to take
the population.
And also, even though we don't have horizontal gene transfer, we still have this, I guess, quote unquote, magical ability to share alleles back and forth in its recombination. That was the whole idea that Mueller's ratchet was, a proposed mechanism that would cause recombination.
The weird thing is, though, like with bacteria, it's almost ensured that it'll occur, right? Because the way that bacteria transfer genetic material to each other is through this molecular technology called a plasmid, and that it inserts its own DNA into a new bacteria. So essentially it replaces one allele with another, and that allele tends to be advantageous based on environment.
Yeah, but you'd have to be extremely lucky with a high mutation rate for a very small population to survive, because you're going to end up with a hell of a lot of deleterious mutations, and there's going to be no population to select against it. And the way, like Lenski's bacteria, some strains developed an there's actually an evolved high mutation rate mechanism that seems to be in bacteria. And the reason it works is because there are millions of them, and there's a lot of material for negative selection to purify it, right? So it takes out the bad ones.
The ecological response to that typically would be the population would stop growing or kind of decrease. Its breeding rate, wouldn't it?
Speed, can I interrupt real quick?
Yeah.
I have to jump off. I have to run something by Otangelo, so I'll check back in later if you're still online.
Okay. That ought to be fun, Peter.
See you, Peter.
He's all wound up.
I'm looking forward to it. So
he's all wound up.
Maybe it's only me, but I do look forward to it.
Otangelo, wear a ball gag.
Check your email. Okay, catch you guys later.
See you, Peter.
Yeah.
Speed, essentially, yeah. All right, take care, Peter. The scenario we're describing, essentially what would happen is the organisms or the population would enter a prolonged state of stasis, wouldn't it?
If high mutation?
Yeah, it would essentially enter a state where reproduction kind of ceases until that pressure is gone.
Wait, what do you mean?
It's able to.
I'm not sure what you mean.
Bacteria sometimes, I think there's recorded instances where if you introduce, if you cut off food supply to the bacteria, essentially they'll just stop. They won't go through division. They'll wait and they'll conserve energy metabolically until until the conditions kind of mature and become ripe for them to keep growing and continue division. So they'll essentially enter this state of stasis for a prolonged period of time until the conditions ripen up again.
Yeah, well, that might save them from that, but I still
it
think
has its
that,
limits, though. I mean, it can't do it forever.
I mean, if we're looking at a small Neanderthal population and it's diverging so rapidly from human beings that it would account for the massive difference between those two genomes in 600 years, and they also had a very small population size or small breeding size, it just doesn't work.
No, it doesn't make sense.
No.
Anyway, guys,
like how do you generate new allelic diversity within that kind of population when Standing has said that like all the genetic diversity was front loaded into the genome, ignoring what that actually, what
front loaded
means.
for large brains, large brow size, totally different structure. I don't know. It doesn't. But his whole timeline on Neanderthals is 1,300 years. I nailed him down on that.
Mm-hmm.
So they diverged from the regular human population. They mutated into Neanderthals. They thrived and went extinct in 1,300 years on a glacier. So how in the fuck does that work? I don't know. I'd like to see his whole model, written out in detail in a paper.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He doesn't have one. Calling it a model, I think, is overly generous.
It is very generous.
I would be content, in very generously saying he has a hypothesis, but even that's kind of stretching.
I still think he just has multiple conjectures. He doesn't even have hypotheses, because hypotheses are testable claims. If you created a test, I guess, for what his conjectures are. I mean, first of all, most of his conjectures have already been falsified. But if you created a test for his conjectures, then maybe they'd become hypotheses.
I think the major reason that he avoids kind of essentially quantifying his his conjectures is that the moment you play the scientific game, the moment you allow your thoughts to be analyzed, you allow for the possibility that they are wrong. And that's not something that Standing is willing to do, it seems.
What's happening here is we're all building a house, and we have a roofing crew and a siding crew, and we're building a deck out back, and he's standing on the sidelines throwing pebbles at us, trying to distract us from building the fucking house. And that's all he's got is these little tiny pebbles. So I found a paper, and he'll cherry pick a quote out of the paper and throw that pebble at us, and we're like, God damn, what was that? We get back to building the fucking house. So,
but I mean, the thing is, it's easy to tell when they've done that. Kind of like when you had that talk with Otangelo about that paper on that weird astronomical number for protein sequence or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it named this giant freaking number, and you look at it and it's like, oh, but that's not what they're saying. They're actually drawing a completely different conclusion.
Yeah, the whole paper was about paring that number down. But what did he call that? Irrelevant. The one quote,
whatever.
Jason, it was the funniest thing. Otangelo brought a paper onto our stream to make a point, and we scrolled down to the end of the paper, and the end of the paper said something about creationists using the big numbers game. So he brought a paper that totally destroyed him. and then he doubled down, and he wanted to do a hangout with me and talk about that paper again. So I brought the paper up, and I thought we were going to go over it. And all he did was he went to this one opening quote where they calculate the probability of creating a protein by taking basically 20 to the whatever power, right?
100 amino acids in length, and you do that number, and it gets you something.
And then I complained that we weren't actually reading the paper, and he said, "Oh, the paper's that's all irrelevant. I only wanted to show you that one part." It was oh my God, it was the most classic piece of cherry picking I've ever fucking seen.
Even that, somebody could go out and find 5 publications that might support their particular position, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the scientific consensus. I mean, I can find a paper that almost will support anything. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's supported from a scholarly position in that discipline. What's better is to say, I've done a bibliography of these 40 papers from high impact journals from these particular, groups of research teams. And the consensus of that is this. I mean, that's what most people do, is that they do a meta-analysis of many publications and then compile what the outcomes of all those are. So,
Oh yeah, the thing is, like with a lot of these origin of life papers, what you'll find out, especially on review papers too, you'll see like a bibliography of like 200 papers, and it's like they're giving a ton of information in regards to where they've drawn this information, the outline of the review, what's trying to be said, what isn't trying to be said. And if there are things you want to research further into, guess what? They've thought that through. So if they're talking about RNA world and recent progress done by John Sutherland and other people who are very invested in RNA world and other prebiotic chemistry systems, they'll link like several review articles done in addition to like the newest paper that John Sutherland has put out or something like that, so that you can actually go look at it.
If I work, again, I'm a climatologist. I'm not a biologist, but I do work for a research team that does molecular, biological, mathematical modeling. And so a lot of the work that I do is spatiotemporal modeling, like machine learning associated with climate, et cetera. I'm not a molecular biologist, anything like that. But I'll bet if I went and talked to my colleagues about like this James Tour guy and asked them if they knew who he was, if he is, kind of a person that they would look to from a research perspective on some of these evolutionary biology perspectives, I bet they don't even know who he is. I bet they're like, oh, I've heard his name, but he's not relevant in this particular area.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the thing. James Tour is known for very specific things. He's known for like nanotechnology. He's known for building several businesses whose sole purpose is to development and enrichment of nanotechnological and very specific chemical systems that kind of fall within that purview, but not origin of life chemistry. Because that field is very specialized. That field is something that quite a small collection of people have been working on for essentially decades now. And they're still making progress on it.
The funny thing is, you mentioned like nanoparticles. There's a woman at Ohio State that is in my family through marriage. Her name is Jessica Winter. She's an expert in nanoparticles. I'm going to ask her about this. She teaches at Ohio State. She does a lot of work, and I think she actually does work on something where they've created something called quantum dots, which I don't.
Essentially,
I don't know anything about it.
You can use it for a few things. They're used for, I think they're used like fluorescence or phosphorescence.
Oh yeah, maybe so. Yeah.
But they're used to study properties of molecules that are otherwise hard to study the properties of, like the diffusivity of a molecule in a particular solvent or something like that.
I'm gonna ask her about this guy. See if she knows who he is. So
I think Tour's done some work with pharmaceutical delivery, I think. So they have. So there's a good. I mean, he's done some really great work, and he's got a lot of papers. It's just that he's got kind of a bee in his bonnet about evolution, and that is a problem. So.
I don't want to slam that guy, because obviously he's an established researcher. He has a high H index. He's probably well known in his particular focus discipline. So
the thing is, with evolution, he's openly said he doesn't understand it.
Yeah. Which is what most scientists should do, is that as the more you know, the more you realize there are areas that you don't know. The more you learn, you're like, wow, this field there's so much stuff that I don't know. That's actually the test of somebody who's really smart and that is focused in their area. When they acknowledge that the more they have learned, how much they are just scratching the surface of their particular area.
The thing is, though, too, like most people who acknowledge their boundaries, like, yeah, I'm not really an evolutionary biologist, I'll shut up now. James Tour hasn't done. I mean,
yeah.
Well, he does it. He does
He's
in certain
charged.
venues. He admits that in certain venues, but it depends. But now, if you go to his channel, he's become much bolder and much more biblically based. But if you get him on, if you get him up against other researchers, he is a very reasonable and humble man. Like when he had that debate with Lee Cronin, I thought he conceded a hell of a lot. That he doesn't concede when he's on his channel. So it depends on what venue you get these guys in. Interestingly,
to
me,
Speed.
I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Or you go ahead and then I'll ask my question.
Yeah, okay, go ahead, Andrew. I'll.
We want to hear from you, Andrew. We haven't heard from you for a minute or a long time.
Oh, I was just gonna say I feel like we should, if you want, Speed, we should wrap up soon. But before we do, I did have one more question for Jason when we're done with this.
I was hoping you were going to say that because I do want to wrap up soon. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So Jason, so you mentioned, so you're a scientist in the field, and you mentioned the scientific, or the idea of scientific consensus, and of course, you probably often see creationists or science deniers going around and saying, oh, look at this piece of evidence or this piece of evidence, etc., and saying that disproves the entire model or the entire theory. And I wanted to hear your thoughts on why either you think they do that or why you think that might be in a really bad way to do science, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. So the first thing I would say is that as we most of us, I think, know that science is about, what, like, a scientist is the most prolific thing a scientist can say is, I don't know. Like oftentimes, I mean, science approaches issues from the perspective that we may know based on certain theories and approaches that we are very confident. And I say this generally because I'm imagining there are some aspects of science where you can say we are absolutely sure about something, although I kind of don't like using the word absolute with this, that we're fairly confident on a particular topic. Now, does that mean that somebody's not going to come along with a theory or some approach that blows that idea out of the water and changes our mindset on a topic? Of course that can happen. And so when a science denier, or whatever you want to call it, somebody who has a position that is in opposition to a known established theory or focused area, comes in and says, this is something that goes against this model is crap. The natural inclination of a scientist is to say, okay, you're an honest actor. You're being honest. We should evaluate what the information that you're presenting, because if you have actual evidence that might support that this model doesn't work, we want to know that, because we're searching for truth and we want that. Right. But I think that in some ways scientists do themselves a disservice when they entertain those ideas, because somebody who comes along and says the Earth is 6,000 years old and I have actual proof, your model is crap. And so the natural, like a scientist wants to say, okay, well, I'm open to whatever theory or idea that you have. Let's take a look at it. And as soon as I say, let's take a look at it, they're like, aha, there you go. You don't think your model's valid. See, your model could be wrong. I'm confirmed in what I've been thinking. And so So anyways, that's in general. I'll stop, but you get what I'm saying.
I have a really good example. Charles Kurland came up with an idea, and he has evidence to back it up, that rather than eukaryotes developing from archaea and prokaryotes, that it was the other way around, that the eukaryotic complexity came first, and then it pared down or devolved into prokaryotes, and that just completely turns everything on its head. And I don't know how much support he's gotten. I think he wrote the paper in 2010. And I've been trying to find out how he's been received. But I mean, he has enough evidence, and Sal Cordova brought it up, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, holy shit, that turns everything inside out. But the guy has some points, and I'm not going to just say he's wrong And I know Walker, I think you freaked out when I told you about it the other day, but I mean, he's got some points that need addressing. So, and it has to do with genomics and comparing what genes are where. And he has some indication that, this, and, we could have it all wrong. And if that's the case, maybe we're barking, we need to bark up a different tree, but it sure as hell doesn't disprove evolution or abiogenesis like Sell is hoping. It just tells us, hey, here's a new idea, a radical one.
I mean, people make their careers scientifically off of finding publications that are wrong, that are like, I can dispute this particular position, from a scientific objective position. I'm going to write a paper that shows how that's wrong. People do that all the time. And so science welcomes that. I mean, that's what science is based off of. But again, I think like in these situations, we're our own worst enemy because of that, because then we entertain these quackpot theories that give credence to a position like the flat earth. Somebody goes, I think the earth is flat. I have evidence. Am I supposed to say, well, if you actually have evidence of that, I'll consider it? I mean, it flies in the face of like how much other evidence against that. So,
right. And I think, would you also agree that, like, not always the case, but in general, like overarching theories, they don't always necessarily change or get completely overturned. They sometimes get like engulfed or modified, kind of like Newton and Einstein, for instance.
Exactly. That's exactly right. That we're kind of like, we're course correcting. Like we're going down the road and we're correcting the course, and it's getting, we're getting closer and closer to the bullseye. We're like the accuracy, precision aspects. We're getting closer and closer to where we are. And so the further we get, the more information is fed into our understanding. When somebody comes in with an alternative perspective, it's more and more difficult to totally go off course way over here, because we have all this other evidence that is pointing us in this direction. So it may be like, oh, now we need to shift it over a little bit over here, but yeah, like to totally change that in some ways goes into this issue of like, what is it? Extraordinary claims requires extraordinary evidence. If you have an extraordinary position that says this model is 180 degrees wrong, then you better have completely extraordinary evidence that may support that position.
But here's the wonderful thing about it. That Charles Curlin thing, what it does is it makes us rethink and recheck everything and check his stuff. And in that process, we may come up with something new to bolster our theory that we wouldn't have thought of before. And it gets even stronger. So the criticism makes your theory stronger if you're open to it. And I'm open to, I call myself a theory slut, because I'll sleep with any theory. Nice. Because I like it, because it makes me re-examine every position, right?
Yeah.
And of course, Nietzsche said, "What doesn't kill my theory makes my theory stronger."
Yep.
And that kind of gets
it was on a napkin. It was on a napkin in Munich when he wrote that.
Who wrote that? Who was it?
Nietzsche. I was being stupid.
Oh okay. No. Okay.
It's getting late. We're all going to get stupid pretty quick if we don't quit.
Yeah, my brain's getting tired, so I'm making stupid literary references.
Yeah, I need to go eat food. And I'm watching Falcon and the Winter Soldier finally. So, which is entertaining as hell. I'm having a good time with it.
Well written. I have few complaints about it.
Bucky's alive.
Almost a spoiler.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I caught myself. I just want to talk to people. I wanted to get in a group discussion about Falcon and Winter Soldier with people who've already seen it, with the spoiler warning flashed across in a banner or something.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it.
Okay, guys. So should we wrap up?
Yeah.
All right.
I think that would be good for all of us.
Yes. Any final thoughts or final plugs or anything you want to do? Walker, are you going to have a new video next year?
Actually, I will have one out before May 12th, because
that is way ahead
really
of class. Yeah.
Don't kill yourself rushing to it.
So I'll have one out within the next 2 weeks for a class, and then I always have plans over the summer. We'll see if I get to them.
Yeah, I have lots
But
of plans.
once school
too.
is out, I feel like I'll have a lot more free time. I hope to at least get my goal is to get 2 or 3 videos out over the summer.
I used to have lots of plans. None of them ever called me back. Okay,
We
guys.
don't want to hear about how many. We don't want to hear about how many estranged children you've had that are still trying to get in touch with you.
Okay. So we're going to end the broadcast. So I only have one thing to say, and that is goodbye, cruel world.